So the question on everyone's mind is, when will Bitcoin break 100K? In this video, I'm going to be taking you through some patterns that have occurred throughout Bitcoin's history that could give us a clue as to when that magical moment might happen, as well as some potential altcoin trade setups that we could see should we see a pullback over the coming week or so. So let's get into the charts. So let's start by taking a look at our Bitcoin 4-year cycle chart. Now, if you're not familiar with what the Bitcoin 4-year cycle is, go check out either Bob Lucas's YouTube channel or our video that we made just before the US election, where I go over this chart in a lot more detail. But essentially, the thing I want to draw your attention to, as I did in that video, is the fact that we have entered into the third year of the Bitcoin 4-year cycle, which is always the most bullish. We just remind ourselves what happened in previous cycles. So back in October 2016, we entered into the third year of that Bitcoin 4-year cycle, and we went up 2,586% to the cycle high. Again, in October 2020, we went up 389% to the cycle high. And this year, as I say, just as we went into the election, we entered into the third year of this Bitcoin 4-year cycle. So judging by previous results, we should be breaking 100K in the not too distant future. It almost seems like a guarantee. Of course, it isn't. Anything could happen. However, if we take a look at previous cycles, it looks like we should be in for a very bullish, at least 6, maybe potentially 9 months. We could potentially, if the cycle goes on for as long as the previous two, look to be topping out in and around September, October of 2025. But of course, there's no guarantee, so make sure you're taking profits along the way. If we also take a look at the Bitcoin's returns history, so if we take a look at December, usually it's a bit of a mixed bag. However, if we take a look at the previous bull market, so 2017, a 38% return, which is pretty good. And in 2020, a 46% return as well. So a bit of a red start to this December, but I'll go over that in just a minute. In terms of the Q4 returns, again, as we talked about in that last video, so the Q4 is always, or the last quarter of the year is always the most bullish, particularly in bull markets. If we take a look at 2017, we saw a 215% return on BTC, and in 2020, 168%. We've already got 50% return so far with 1 month left to go, so we could see a bit of a Santa rally. But let's take a look at another chart where we're going to see another pattern that could potentially play out over the next couple of weeks. So the other couple of patterns that have played out throughout Bitcoin's history have to do with the US election. So as I pointed out in that previous video, the low that got put in on the week of the election in all of the previous cycles has never been retested. So back in 2016, the election week, we put in a low of $687, and that never came back to be retested. In 2020, we put in a low of $13,200, and again, that didn't come and get retested, even though we hit 15K back in the bear market lows of 2022. And this election, we put in a low on the week of 66,880. So if things go according to the pattern, we shouldn't see that level get retested. Now, the other thing to do with elections is the fact that we have always sold off in the first week of December during an election year, and then gone on to make new highs in the following week. So if we scroll down into the 2016 election and we take a look at the weekly time frame, so as I say, first week of December, we've normally seen a sell-off or a low put in. As you can see here, we put in a low of $745, and then we rallied for the rest of December, putting in a high into January, the first week of January, 56% gain from the lows of December into the top of January. And then we had a very deep pullback going from $1,165 all the way back down to $730, which is a 36% pullback. But as you can see, a drop in the first week of December and then rallied into the first week of January. If we then take a look at what happened in 2020, so again, zoom in on the weekly. So the first week of December, we had this pullback here, this red candle, where we pulled back, what did we pull back here? We pulled back about 10%, and then we rallied for the next few weeks, again, going into the beginning of January, where we started to have a pullback. That rally from the bottom of the December candle to the top of that January candle was 138%. before we saw a pullback of 30%. So again, started putting a low at the first week of December, rallied into the first week of January where we had a deep correction. So are we going to see something similar this time around? So we've obviously entered into the first week of December now. Are we going to see a pullback and then a rally into the January? And of course, January is where the inauguration happens as well with the US election. So that is a common theme as we've seen in previous cycles. So something to watch out for over the coming week or so. So if we are going to see a pullback, where might we pull back to, and what's that going to mean for Ethereum and some altcoins? So let's go take a look at some potential trade setups that I think could play out should we see that pullback in this first week of December. Now, just before we get onto those trading setups, if you want to join a supportive online community for trading and investing, then come check out our website at learningcrypto.co.uk, where we've got options to join our Discord. So Traders Lounge is of course for those people that want to get involved in trading. Premium is more geared towards investors, and of course we've got the free option as well if you just want to jump in and see what it's all about. We've still got huge savings on our Black Friday discounts as well on the annual plans. So as I say, jump into the free one, come check it out, see what it's all about, and we look forward to seeing you in there. So let's start with BTC and then move on to Ethereum and the altcoins that I've got listed down here of Sol, Phantom, Injective, Near, and Litecoin. So in terms of Bitcoin, if we are going to see a pullback, the areas that I've got marked out here, we've got a weekly fair value gap that starts at about 89.5k and goes down to around 81.5k. If we go down to the daily, we've got some confluence with the bottom of that weekly fair value gap down here around 81.5k. So we've got a daily fair value gap that goes from about 82.5 down to that bottom of the weekly fair value gap. In terms of a more local pullback, like a shallower pullback, we've got this daily level support here at 91.5k, where the daily moving average 21 is as well. Bearing in mind, we've not tested the daily moving average 21 since we broke above it on the election day back on the 5th of November. So personally, I think if we lose the daily moving average 21 and 91.5k, we may well see a deeper pullback into the mid to low 80Ks. In terms of a upside break, if we don't get that pullback that we are expecting, as soon as we get a daily candle close above this bearish trend line, then I think we are set to move up and break 100k. So two scenarios to keep an eye on with that one. With Ethereum, if we start on the weekly time frame, you can see that we are making our way to the top of this range, which is around 3,880. As I say, we may well see a pullback, as we've talked about earlier in the video, with this first week of December pattern playing out. And if we do, then I think this weekly mid-range of $3,387 is a sensible place for a potential entry. Previous resistance, as you can see, these 2 weeks here in the middle of November. And also, if we take a look at the daily time frame, we've got a lot of consolidation back here. It was heavy resistance before we finally broke through last Wednesday. In terms of a more local support, we've got this daily fair value gap down here between 3,520 and 3,473. If we end up sort of chopping downwards rather than having a big drop, then we may well see the daily moving average 21 catch up to this daily fair value gap. And so around 3,460 might well be a really nice place for Ethereum to put in another higher low. You can see we've already started making these higher lows here. So we put in this consolidation bottom round here around mid to late November, and then again here towards the end of November. So this looks like a very logical place for another higher low in and around where the daily moving average 21 will be in a few days, and right on that daily fair value gap as well. So an area to watch out for over the coming days. In terms of altcoins that I think are looking like a really nice setup, we've got Solana. Rejected the all-time highs a couple of weeks ago. I think if it comes down and retests this previous breakout level of $204, that is a really good entry. The only trouble is I'm not sure if we get that low. Of course, if BTC does have a pullback this week, then obviously chances are increased. In terms of the daily time frame, there's a potential trade here if we aren't going to break down. Go holding this daily fair value gap. We've retested the lows from back on Tuesday 26th. We're having a nice bullish retest of the RSI 50 with a green trend bar on the LC trend and momentum indicator as well. By the way, this comes with the Traders Lounge membership, so something to look out for. We do also have a free version as well. Go ahead and search for that. But if we end up having a bounce off the RSI 50 and holding at this daily fair value gap and getting back above that daily moving average 21, then I think that may well be the low put in, and we could see another attempt at the all-time highs. Nice simple entry here. Just enter when we get back above that daily moving average 21, which could happen today, and then stop loss just below these wicks, and aim for TP1 at the all-time highs, and then TP2 well beyond. In terms of Phantom, if we go onto the weekly time frame, we've had a nice break of this weekly level of 84 cents. So I think if we pull back, retest this area where this weekly fair value gap is around 90 cents, anywhere between 85 and 90 cents, I think that is a good buy. Again, might not get that low, all depends on whether BTC does give us that pullback. And as well, on the daily time frame, we've got that confluence of the daily moving average 21 being at the top of that weekly fair value gap as well. So we may well see it. We are actually testing this support down here about around $1. So if we lose that, then we could easily see 90 to 85 cents. Injective on the weekly time frame, you can see we've broken above. I actually talked about this on Friday's YouTube video, broken above the $28 weekly level of resistance. We've retested it already today as support. It's just a question of whether we get that pullback, as I keep talking about. And if we do, if we get that pullback on BTC, I'd quite like to see Injective come down here, test this area of confluence. So we've got this daily level support at, call it $27. We've got the daily moving average 21, and we've got daily fair value gap just below it. So any sort of wick into this area of around $26.50, I think is a really good potential buy area. Or if you just want to wait for confirmation, wait for the spike to come down, and then we get the weekly candle close above $28.27. In terms of NIA, we are in a level of resistance here on this weekly fair value gap of around $7. So I think if we are going to see a pullback, come down, retest this level of support at $5.50. We've got a weekly fair value gap and the weekly moving average 21 just below it there as support at $5.30. So anywhere between sort of $5.50 and $5.30, I think is a really nice entry. If we go down to the daily as well, we could see this previous level of support down here at $5.50, not only on the weekly but on the daily time frame as well. It looks like a really nice area of support. And finally, Litecoin. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is because, of course, XRP has done an absolute madness and gone up. I think it's like 4x in the past week or so. So could Litecoin be the next one that has a pop? We can see we're breaking out of this monthly range high at $110. A lot of consolidation, been consolidating in this range since April 2022. So lots of accumulation. We could see a very hard and fast breakout. If we go down to the weekly, again, if we are going to see a pullback this week, then I'd like to buy in around a retest of this monthly range high around $110, maybe even this weekly level of previous support and resistance. You can see it's been a big level of support and resistance on the weekly time frame for Litecoin at around $102 to $105. So anywhere between 110 and 105, maybe 102, I think is a really good area to stock up on some Litecoin. We could see a very hard and fast breakout of that monthly range high, as I just talked about. So drop in the comments below what you think is going to happen this week. Do you think we get a pullback before we break 100k, or do you think we are in up only mode? Let me know what you think, and I'll see you on the next video.